Hello, everyone, and I hope you've been having a great time learning and networking. Please do visit our networking lounge to interact with the industry and make extremely meaningful connections. Now, welcome to our next panel, The Rise of Digital Payments Across the Region. For this panel, I would like to call Mr. Mosam. He is the Senior VP Payments, Noon.com. Mosam is responsible for the development of fintech products and services, including Noon's homegrown payment platform, Noon Pay. He's the business management and finance professional for more than 15 years of experience in the industry. Also on the panel, Mr. Vineet Madan, the head of retail banking and deputy general manager, Banque Misr. Vineet has over 15 years of experience in the banking industry across India and the Gulf. He's a seasoned banker, professional, and passionate about helping banks transform strategically and become more customer-centric by adopting relevant digital business strategies and techniques. Also on the panel, Mr. Yahyah Pandor is Chief Information Officer for Hygienic. Yahyah has over 20 years of experience in business technology. Yahyah's dynamic approach and pioneering mentality empower him to continue Fine Hygienic Holdings' legacy of innovation and success. He's currently overseeing the advanced and innovative computer technology systems that drive the group's operations. This amazing panel is being moderated by Frederik. Frederik is a transformation specialist and an author. He's a highly respected international personality with expertise in digital transformation and business model innovation. Over to you, Frederik. I hope you have a good session.
Thank you so much, and very warm welcome to everybody. I just had the pleasure of meeting all of you before starting, and I'm certain with the energy that you're bringing in, we're going to have a very good talk here. I think one of the things that we've all seen in this COVID situation and going forward is that the usual way of doing business is probably not the right way of doing business going forward. And we need, just to kick off from a banking perspective, or from your perspective, having weathered through the storm, I'm not saying it's over yet, but at least I think we made our first experiences on how to deal with the COVID situation, and maybe even to prepare for a post-COVID world. If you were to give our audience today some advice or ideas, what are the most important things that are takeaways from the way that you at the bank has transformed and developed into the COVID? So how would we go about and prepare our company strategic wise for a post-COVID situation?
Yeah. So thanks, Frederik, for the question. And before that, Mitsu, thank you for the introduction. Frederik, before I actually, share what our learning has been and our takeaway, I think a bit of context in terms of where we are, right? So, these are absolutely the unprecedented times. We haven't, come across something like this probably in the last 100 years, right? So what that has led to is there's been a fundamental change in the way people think, work, study. All of that has been disrupted because of this pandemic. As business or as banks, from our perspective, the strategy development cycle itself has changed. So, earlier when you used to have a 3-year, 5-year plan, it's no more than those times, right? We're now only thinking 1 quarter ahead, 6 months ahead, because customer behavior is changing fast. Technology is evolving. So, one takeaway for us is don't think too far ahead. Plan for the next 6 months, 12 months at max, and then take and see, how it goes from there. The other thing is, I think these are traits of, the winners that will come out of this pandemic is organizations. And I know probably this has been said many times before, but I need to emphasize that organizations that are genuinely agile, right? The organizations and people that are resilient to these kind of shocks, who can actually manage, business, despite these kind of disruptions, are going to be the winners. So, when we develop our strategy, when we look at, our supply chains, our operational model, agility in everything we do, and resilience in our way of work is extremely critical. The other thing is, when I think of it is, is really build a digital first culture in the organization. And that's something that we are trying to do as a small bank that has a long way to go. We're really focusing on, thinking of everything as digital first, not because, that's the way to go. It's because there is no other way. Customers want, no matter what they do, where do they go, they only think of digital first and then anything else, right? So it has to translate that into the way we work, um, and also, it's not just simply okay, we need to be digital, digitalize your processes, and it doesn't work like that. Mindset, the mindset of the people, mindset, and start from the leadership. That's extremely critical. So that's the second, and I think the last probably that I would say, in terms of personally speaking, the takeaway, and when I see other banks and across the region, is really building some level of customer and social empathy. People have suffered. We as banks, have a responsibility not just, to take care of the financial, well-being of our customers, but really as a contributor, positive contributor to society. And that is something that customers, for public companies, even the share market, they value if you are contributing something to the society. So I think, short strategic cycles, resilience and agility, building a digital first culture and being empathetic to your customers. I think these are probably the key takeaways from my perspective.
Yeah, but I couldn't agree more. Thank you. One follow-up question, Vineet, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Now, obviously, you have reduced your strategy cycle, and I would assume that reducing strategy cycle is actually a first step in making the organization more aware of frequent changes. Can you mention just one or two initiatives that you've done following these sort of strategy cycles to actually get, how can I say this, increase the heartbeat of the organization as well?
Right. So I think, Frederik, the most important thing that we've done is we've increased our level of communication within the organizations. Right?
That's a good point.
Basically, every change, and we have, in the organization, we have obviously we have WhatsApp groups across departments, key stakeholders. The level of communication of external events, internal events, and that is something that was not there before, right? So we used to have your typical forum where you exchange, but it's no longer there. And that's been cascaded across the organization, right to the front line.
So I think that's a key takeaway. That's a key takeaway.
Absolutely,
that's a good point. Yeah. So that was from a bank's perspective. Thanks, Vineet.
Thank you.
And of course, the COVID, and one way of preventing COVID, everybody knows, is also using contactless payments. Yahyah, from a fine perspective, do you have any specific strategies in mind, saying how can we move the traditional cash environment to contactless payments in the UAE? Do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, Mitsu, thanks for a wonderful introduction. Whoever wrote that deserves an Oscar. I mean, it's fantastic. I may use that in my personal life. But no, we're quite privileged. We work with most, if not all, the retailers in this region, be it from Carrefour to Lulu to the local dispenser, all the way down in Egypt. So yeah, contactless payments for us has become a pretty important issue on how we do that. Now, typically what we look at is a consumer-centric point of view, because fundamentally I'm a consumer, you're a consumer, people have children. So the first thing is obviously cleanliness. I mean, it can sound so strange, but the whole till environment of where you pay, it needs to be clean now. It needs to be sterile. The assistant behind needs to have a certain barrier. We sell masks. Everyone knows that now, but the people need to be clear, especially if you have children or an elder with you. That whole environment needs to be secure. And even in banking, I went to a bank last week, and again, they've changed the processes in the bank store, and that made me feel more comfortable. So I think it really comes down to three things. And I always look at things as me, as a consumer. I think the first thing is, once you get to the till point, it needs to be clean. Great. Now, once you put in your products into your trolley and it's time to check out, for me as a consumer, I think it's three things. One is fast connections, period. I swipe my card, I tap my card, I use my phone. It's got to be quick. Which brings me on to the second most important point, which is your networks in the store and also on your network connectivity. If you may have the best contactless technology in the world, but if you can't get a connection in 1 second, it's pointless, absolutely useless. So I think this is where Do Telecom, Etisalat, and some of the other providers in this particular region need to make things easier and better for banks, retail banking, for consumers, as well as for retailers in the store. And I think the last point is security. That's the most important thing. I mean, the one thing that Corona has shown is security, especially cybersecurity, has actually increased because people are going online and people are making online payments. So as a very quick synopsis, I think those three are critical to making contactless payments far widely adopted. And I think the last thing, in this particular region is also cultural adoption. There's a lot of places, especially in Dubai, where for example, Satwa or Dira, where the people go to get their suits tailored. I mean, Frederik, you've got a wonderful shirt on there, so that must be tailored. But in these areas, they still take cash. So we need to get those areas, we need to get those people adopted into the contactless payments quickly.
So if I may add, sorry, if I may just add, and just to give a, because you make some relevant point, especially the last one. So from a banker's perspective, what I'd like to actually share is, and it's obviously led by the Central Bank of UAE, right? So right from 2018, actually, when the central bank actually, introduced their national payment strategy, the move to a contactless, cashless society began actually 2 years back. What COVID has done is it's basically, and I'm sure we've all known this, is really pushed this, move to contactless. And it's both ways, right? So it's consumers who are asking for it, and it's banks and payment companies that are actually going faster and delivering that. Just to add to what you said, so shops like in Satwa, right? So there are institutions like the Emirates digital wallet. They've just recently launched their digital cash called Clip, and there are other banks that are actually building that. So these kind of platforms do not need a bank account. It's just a smartphone. You can receive money, you can pay money through your smartphone. The fact is, the adoption is growing, but and the whole ecosystem is developing, right? But I think what we need to understand is this is not something that will just suddenly, from a 80% cash will come down to 20% cash in 12 months. That is not going to happen. The movement has happened. It's going faster. However, I still see this trend towards contactless taking at least another 6 to 12 months before it really gets ingrained. And the only reason it's going to take that long is that there is still a significant chunk of people in the UAE that is still not as part of the banked population, right? So they are still unbanked.
Vineet, that's an extremely important point, right? Because the Middle East region is the culture, as we say, is cash.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that Careem got sold to Uber, because Careem, they had this advantage, they could actually handle cash and Uber couldn't. I think that's a perfect segue into you, Mosam, because you are delivery, right? So I would assume that still a large percentage of your customers is cash and delivery.
Yeah.
And the way the world is going, what are you doing?
So yeah, I think I'll allude from the point where Vineet left, and basically even us as known, we have been focusing on pushing more customers towards prepaid mode. In fact, in the month of in the first few months when COVID was actually growing, and there were a lot of clampdowns around cash usage, and customers were really wary of actually transacting cash, including our own drivers for their own security. We actually shut down cash on delivery, and we had some amazing amount of adoption reaching to prepaid. Having said that, customers still are using cash for multiple transactions, and in the lines of getting societies to accept more contactless and cashless methodologies, we recently have launched a software version of our NoonPay app. It's a digital wallet where you can pay using QR codes for Noon deliveries. We are just scaling it up as we speak. And beyond that, of course, we all agree fundamentally that cash globally is going to see a massive amount of decline over coming years and decades. It will not be eliminated. I'm not saying we'll eliminate cash completely, but a large chunk of cash is actually going to get removed from the commerce transactions, especially when it comes to B2C. I think in the B2B market, any which ways, we see a lot of transactions now converted to proper banking channels, and there are a lot of investment gone behind that over the last couple of decades. But now it's the time when the B2C has really taken off in a very big way in terms of transforming from paying for commerce in a cash scenario versus people getting used to pay using their mobile phones, digital wallets, or even the contactless cards. I think the key success factor for any such initiative, whether you call it as a QR code based payment method or whether you got a contactless card that you can just tap and pay, I think the role has to be played by the ecosystem players, and a large part of that role is going to be played by banking players, by non-banking entities, and the fintech players who will create multiple ways of giving consumers choices to make payments. As a consumer, if I have now, I mean, everybody has a mobile phone, whether somebody is living in a Dera Satwa area who is earning like a 5,000 dirham salary a month, or somebody living in upscale Palm Jumeirah, doesn't matter. Everybody has a smartphone, works brilliantly well for a contactless card. I think what you need is to create an element of trust and security with such users that, hey, if you use a contactless payment, it's not only safe and secure, but guess what? It's also going to be rewarding, because eventually in the value chain, the handling of cash is always more expensive than handling of a non-cash transactions at a global level. I mean, there are fees involved where there is money flowing between banks and the players in the ecosystem, but eventually at an aggregated view from a society perspective, handling cash versus handling a digital transaction lowers the cost of transaction and creates economies of scale. And I think that benefit has to be passed on to the consumer. And when consumer sees these three things in place, where it is safe and secure, it is convenient, and it is rewarding for me to use a contactless, I have no doubt that in coming months, you will see a huge amount of shift people making from using cash as a predominant method to a non-cash method. And we are actively playing role being one of the core enablers in the commerce world.
Yeah, you are. Yes, you are. And now one question. Let me just flip it around, because you say let's reward users for using digital. What about the other way around? I mean, the traditional delivery fee, right? Can you do a cash fee? So if you're not paying digital, just to go the other way around, because I feel I feel it would be difficult to go to the banks and say, hey, we want lower prices. I'm not going to say yes. So what about, do you think anybody would accept that, saying now we put a 5 dirhams on if you want to pay by cash?
Actually, you are right. I mean, if you shop from Noon today or any of our websites that we have or mobile apps, you actually end up paying a fee to order a cash on delivery. So if you choose a cash method, it's actually a disincentive for you, right? And still we see people paying us that additional fees. And that's something that obviously has been the region sort of behavior from consumer perspective. I think there are two big reasons that we see when it comes to online shopping why people still prefer cash on delivery. One is, of course, the ability to change the mind. You know, like if somebody is taking a lot of time, I need something now, I always have a choice to say no.
To cancel. Yeah.
And actually, for a company like us, that's a big logistics cost to be borne when customers get that window to change the mind. So to tackle that scenario, of course, we make sure that the speed of delivery is faster and very quick. And at the same time, we disincentivize users to use cash by charging them a fee, because it's actually a cost of our operations. Yeah, we are already doing that.
So, Mosam, I mean, if I may just, it's a query that I have. So, how is the COVID crisis actually, impacted the cash on delivery trend? Because what I understood pre-COVID was that it was still a very popular medium of buying online. Because people wanted to probably have a look at the product and maybe then make a decision to pay cash. How has that changed, or how's the COVID crisis impacted this cash on delivery?
So basically, I mean, great question, Vineet. Thanks for that. And I think that's been one of the core focus since COVID started, that how can we actually stop users or disincentivize users to use cash. So as I said, like in the first few months when there were a lot of challenges in handling cash, both from consumer and our own internal people security perspective, we actually just completely shut down cash. And we didn't see a massive drop in demand. It actually sustained. And of course, there are still a set of consumers who are not willing to pay their either they don't have access to cards, or they're not willing to still shop online using their existing cards. And I think that all comes down to two factors, right? How we can create a great ecosystem that is not only dependent on debit credit cards, but also being allowed people to use their bank accounts seamlessly, We all know what UPI has done in India and how we can bring some of those technologies back in the region where it's very easy for people to just pay in a seamless way while they're trusting the platform. But to answer your question again, in a very specific, we have seen a fundamental shift in the consumer behavior from COD payment to a prepaid payment. It's a complete baseline shift, and we expect that it has to remain at least at that level from here on. It's still not gone completely. Still, there are users who are using COD, and now to incentivize those users to use digital payment is where we have launched our app, which is allowing people to pay using QR code, and that fee that they are now paying for a cash, actually they can pay digitally and get that fee waived off. And I think that kind of incentive will slowly push sort of consumers. They still have the flexibility of COD where you are not committed in a mental sense, but yet you can reduce the COD.
Yeah. Thanks for your answer.
Now, this idea of increasing the price if you pay by cash, is that something you have explored?
We've seen a huge increase in people paying by cards, contactless. People, we've had to create shops online very quickly to take payments. I mean, for us, it was a learning curve very, very quickly. Typically, the products get into a van, they get delivered to a shop, and they pay cash, and away you go. But what we've seen over the past 3-4 months, Corona for us has really increased people's awareness of sterilization and the need for cleanliness products. And we provide that, so we've seen the demand for our products go that. One of the areas which we weren't very good at is online. We had a brand online, so the digital transformation team, they had to create online channels very, very quickly. I mean, those products behind me that you see, those are created within 8 to 14 days. I mean, so once you create that product, is how do you sell it? Because nobody's going to the shops and everybody wants a mask. So we had to create a website very quickly. And we made mistakes, some of our processes weren't right and some of our payment options weren't right, etc., etc. And what we found was actually people from outside the region also wanted to purchase our product. So you have an added complication now on international payments. So what we've done now is we created one last one, which is called the Find Shop, which is where you can get all of our products. And what we've learned, and again, it's all learning. And I was talking to Vineet earlier, and I was saying, look, this has all been learning for all of us. Whoever says, oh, I'm the best well-planned project manager is lying. Every day learning through the Corona thing. It's nobody's an ex. You can't study for this stuff. I always tell my team, you can't study for this. You've got to learn on the job. So, we have to make the pictures clear on the website. We have to make sure the products are clear. We partner with Noon, for example, and we make sure that when we send them images, it's all very clear. But most importantly, it's the end part. And I always come back to the end part when the user has to do something. So the user has to put in the card that they're going to pay in, or PayPal, or whatever payment methods they're going to use. And then you have to also calculate the delivery charges. So it has to be accurate delivery charges. So our integration online payment methods with Aramex or whoever we use has to be accurate as well. Now, as a consumer, I don't want to spend less than 10 seconds on that process. I finished online, 10 seconds maximum. I want all my products lined up. I want my address done, and I want my payment method taken. So again, we've learned through our mistakes, Frederik. We've made some mistakes, but now we feel that with the Find Shop, you order the products, whether you live in India, America, or Satwa, you can order online, and all of your charges is accurate. So to answer your question, Frederik, we had to learn quickly. We had to work with our partners like Noon to do this quickly. And again, it comes up with issues. So the issue that Vineet mentioned was very good. Refunds. People want refunds. So, how quick you can give a refund back to the customer is important. If you say to a customer, oh, we can refund you back in 60 days, that customer's not going to buy from you again. He's not. I mean,
one more thing.
Just to add to that, I mean, a compliment to Noon. I'm a Noon customer who's actually gone through a refund, no questions asked, 2 days, money back in the account.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one.
You're a consumer, and you were happy with that process.
Absolutely, yeah.
There you go. And I think Mosam should share his staff code with us as well. So
Unfortunately, we don't. I pay the same price as you guys. Trust me.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not letting you go quite now because I want to stick a little with the shops that you deliver to. because with the chance of being stereotypical here, I would assume that most of the shops that you deliver to, they will not be very happy paying in card or bank transfer, right? They would still prefer cash. Am I right? This is question number one. And question number two, if I am, is there anything you can do about that?
Two great challenges we face. So, you know, everyone, the Carrefours, the Lulus, they're easy. They're done. They will take
Of course.
It's the local guys in Cairo or in Satwa or in Jeddah that still do not have the banking mechanism with them. So we've had to update our sales system. So we have a system where the people go out with their devices, and we've had to make sure that if they're going to get 200 dirhams, that we can actually photo it and take the accurate data through our systems to ensure that we can take that cash. But at all times, we're advising them it's better for them to be online, for them and for us. It's better for them to do it online. Now, you know, with all the will in the world, Ahmad in Satwa, who's going to get charged a small fee for a credit card transaction, he's not going to do it. I mean, and it's like Vineet 100% rightly said, it's going to take 6 to 12 months for that cultural adoption to come. The technology is there. That's easy. It's exactly what the guy said. It's the 6 to 12 month cultural adoption that needs to happen, like what happened in India. That's going to happen eventually. And until that happens, Frederik, we have to work with that particular customer.
Yeah. So, Vineet,
absolutely.
6 to 12 months culture, do you think that's enough? In my experience, if you want to change anything culture, it takes years and years. But do you think the situation has accelerated the need for change to that extent?
Yeah, Frederik, I'm absolutely certain. I don't know more than 12 months actually. And the reasons are all for us to see. It's simply, there won't be any option, you know, for these merchants if they don't go on, you know, onto the electronic methods or contactless methods. Because the customers are not going to be, they won't have cash in their wallet, for example.
Exactly.
Ultimately. So they will say, okay, you only need cash. I'm not interested. I'll go to the next shop that will take my payment. But, you know, so.
Oh, yeah, Vineet, that's one thing, right? But right now, allow me to stay just half a second with these shops that Yahyah would always talk about, that they predominantly only have cash, right? That will probably be a cooperation between all of you, so to speak.
Absolutely.
To make them, you know, understand the value of, or enable them to have a card.
So I was just going to say that actually, you know, so it's not as if, you know, as banks, we're telling them you don't have a choice, take it, otherwise no, it's not like, you know, we're working with merchants, you know, the banks are working with merchants to create payment solutions. See, what does a merchant look for? You know, when he wants to move from cash to a non-cash or a digital cash method, right? He's obviously looking at how soon am I going to actually get the payment realized? Yeah. How soon, what kind of charges are you trying me? You know, what kind of a discount rate are you going to apply for different methods, you know, for me? Is there an acceptance in terms of customers? You know, what those methods that you're asking me to adopt, you know, what is the client base? You know, how many customers am I going to actually get? So these are some fundamental questions, you know, that the merchants or you know, the merchants of the Satwa world, right, would have before they move to do that. And I just go back to the same point, you know, on the you know, the digital wallet, Emirates digital wallet, and Clip, you know, which is the digital cash. Now, you know, that's just one example, right? There are other, you know, banks that have their own wallets that are not just for individuals, but they're creating for SMEs as well. There's a lot of work that fintechs are doing in this space, right? And they are talking to banks every day. And so I'm pretty certain that, you know, banks, along with these other providers, you know, players in the ecosystem that you mentioned, are actually going to be in a position to come to these merchants and say, you know what, we have something that takes care of your concerns. Now is the time for you to move, because if you don't move now, then you run the risk of genuinely losing business. And it works. It's not just this way, right? At the same time, we're doing a lot of work in, you know, awareness amongst customers as well, educating them, repeatedly telling them, you know, these are the methods, because there's a law of inertia, right? Yeah. We are used to something. We have a tendency of going back to that unless someone keeps pushing us, right? So, of course, there is a certain segment that are already digital and they will never go back. Then, no matter, they were already digital pre-COVID. Yeah. But there's a significant chunk that actually turned digital during this period. The challenge for us is to ensure that they don't go back, that inertia does not kick in, right? And that's something that, we're even seeing after the restrictions were lifted. We saw, customers coming back to the branches, and we say, why are you coming back?
Go home.
You were doing this in the last 3 months. Just because the branch is open doesn't mean you need to go, right? So that's something, again, goes back to the cultural part, right? But because now this has become, it's a given and everyone accepts it, I think as consumers or as businesses, they will realize it, and we're only moving in the direction. My sense is 12 months. It could be 18, but definitely no more than that.
Let's hope you're right, because it's needed.
Frederik, can I just come back on your point very quickly? Because
of course, sorry.
20 seconds. I actually don't think it'll take that long, if I'm honest. I mean, look at the taxis in Dubai. They would always complain, oh, we don't take cards,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but that's a necessity, right?
I don't have a connection. They can't take cash no more. So they had to adopt within 3 to 4 weeks.
No, and absolutely, yeah. But again, it goes back to the point that I made, right? The government vision here, right, and the central bank vision. Mosam gave a example of UPI in India. Why did it start? It was a regulatory, it's a government drive. Unless and until you have a public infrastructure and the government behind a public infrastructure for contactless, then it's all about me fighting with my customer, the other bank saying, okay, move. Increment, increasingly, it's all going to be digital. The Dubai government has a plan of 50% government transactions on blockchain 2021 onwards. There's no choice. Some of their service centers don't accept cash anymore. So it's the whole ecosystem coming together, and working towards that. So, I gave a 12-month horizon. Like I said, I personally think it is 6 to 12, to be honest.
But that's I hope you're right, as I said. Just one thing that you said, Vineet, where we talk about fintechs. I would like to explore just 5 more seconds on Mosam's, your QR code payment, which I think is really interesting. Is that, how is that related to the banks? Is that an expansion of the bank services, or is it a competitor, or how does it work? Because I actually honestly haven't heard of it before.
Yeah, actually, it's I would say it's just launched. We have not yet really gone and talked about it in the market yet. We are still working with the regulators in terms of getting it sorted from a licensing perspective, etc. So, of course, we've launched a narrower version of it for our own use case, which is to be allowed, to pay for our QR code based deliveries rather than cash. That's a smaller version, but our eventual aim is to, just what Vineet said earlier, is to enable the ecosystem, right? You have merchants on one side of the equation and you have customers on the other side of the equation, and create a network of acceptance, just like Paytm has done in India or Alipay has done in China. I think that's the vision. And eventually, a lot of technologies have come up now. You don't have to necessarily stick to QR code. There are a bunch of other new technologies that are really exciting, and QR code is just a medium. The idea is to convert your mobile phone into a payment point and a payment acceptance point. I think that's the place where the world is going. So merchant doesn't need to buy a hefty device, pay a rent for it. His mobile phone can actually be the acceptance point, and that's the tech that we are looking forward to.
Okay, thank you. So if you were to say the main reason that people, apart from COVID, what is the main reason we can use? Let's say we go back to a new normal with no pandemic, at least right here and now. What can we do to continue to drive payments cashless? I mean, of course, the rewards and as Yahyah said, also the ease of payments, or was it used? It cannot take long time. Are there any? I guess it's most of you can answer first, but if anybody has, what can we do to make sure that people actually want to stick with the digital and not, as Vineet said, just rush back to the branches the second they open?
Yeah, I think let me start, and then guys, please add on. For me, as a player in a digital ecosystem where we are serving customers from serving their needs on buying stuff to buying services, I think for us, we obviously don't want customers to go back to cash, and the bunch of customers have already moved on, so we continue to obviously serve them well and give them more options to pay. Like today on on a known app, you can use Apple Pay, you can use your Google Pay, and multiple other payment methods. Similarly, on the offline payments, the wallet comes into picture, and it allows you to do transactions seamlessly at a variety of merchants, and at the same time, it allows you to earn rewards. I think the third big piece, which is outside of the corporations, is the regulatory infrastructure. Now, regulatory infrastructure is not only about a bunch of 50, 60 pages of regulations or 100 pages of regulations, but actually much more than the letter is the spirit of those regulations and how it enables a level playing field where all the parties of the financial ecosystem, it is banks, it is fintechs, it is merchants who are at the receiving end, actually come to a party together and create a very stable and sustainable way where customers feel comfortable being part of. And it's a joint effort of market development and consumer psychology change towards accepting digital payments. And COVID has accelerated that. So customers today are actually adding cards very easily on their Apple Pay devices, or Apple Pay on their Apple devices, or even for that matter, Google Pay. And people are comfortable. I mean, we all haven't shopped so much outside over the last few months, but whenever I go out still, I've hardly seen people paying cash. Everybody takes out a phone and just taps it. And I think that behavior change is really happening fast. And we can incentivize customers to just continue to do that more and more.
So if I'm trying to, at least to that specific question, before, I'm sorry, gentlemen, I want to hear your comments on this. If I'm to sum up what I've heard the three of you say to this question, how can we make sure that we don't go back to cash? There's three things, right? There is the comfort, as you say, the security. We have to trust in the system. It has to be rewarded in some kind of, there has to be some kind of motivation behind it. And then it has, as you say, Yahyah, it has to be extremely hassle-free, right? 10 seconds or I'm doing something else. Is there any other things, if just to sum up on this specific question, because I think that's three really valid points. Is there any other things?
I'll just add, Frederik, just one accept, one part. I think most of it, Yahyah, Mosam have covered. I think there is still a lot of work we need to do in customer awareness and education. I think what's happened is the technology is moving really fast, right? And I'm not talking about this as a digitally savvy customer who really knows the different technologies available, who's the a pioneer in terms of adoption. No, I'm talking about a general regular customer who goes out, wants to buy, and there's a significant chunk of people who still only understand and they take the physical card as the first thing they take out, or cash for that matter. So, at every stage in the journey, irrespective of what transaction they're doing, right from buying groceries to buying a house, right? There are different journeys, but the level of awareness and education, both in terms of ease, convenience, and security, right? The messaging has to keep happening, right?
Yeah.
The underlying desire is already there. Customers want to be digital, but there are apprehensions, both in terms of security. There may be, inconveniences that a customer would have faced, like Yahyah mentioned. So, if I have had a too long time, while authenticating for my shopping cart, I assume either that payment method does not work, or maybe there's something wrong with that merchant, right? So that level, and it has to be continuous. It cannot be it cannot be taken as a 2 month, 3 month, 4 month. It has to become a part of life. And this is where I really have to kind of commend our the central bank. We, since the beginning of COVID, all banks have been running a campaign on all channels, explaining to customers that why digital payments are good, that they are safe, where all you can actually go and use digital channels, because the regulator understands that this is a journey. And because of COVID, we're just kind of doubling down on really emphasizing this part. So I think that is the other aspect that we need to take care for us to move the contactless payments to the next level.
So of course communication is a key part of establishing the credibility and the trust in the system. I think I can see from Mitsu that actually we have a lot of very good questions from the audience. So Mitsu, I don't know if you want to turn your camera back on and see if we have time for some of these questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone. We have definitely some very, very interesting questions. Mr. Anish Singh is asking, as digital payments are on the rise, do you see the cost for merchant services coming down in the near future?
So yeah, let me take that question. Absolutely, yeah, they are likely to come down. Simply, it's a law of supply and demand, right? So at the same time, while as banks we want customers to move to contactless and digital forms of payment, the cost structure cannot remain the same, and it will not remain the same. The very fact that these are technologies that don't require a huge infrastructure, even at the bank's end. And issuers in terms of Visa and Mastercard are also support in that. So I clearly see the merchant discount rates or the discounts that the merchants have to pay going down. But again, it's not something that will happen overnight, because there is a commercial aspect to that as well. But the direction is very clear. It will go down. How much and how much time, that remains to be seen.
So thank you. And the Yahyah and Mosam. So if the banks, they reduce the transaction fees on credit card payments or card payments, who's going to benefit, the customers or you?
I'll let Noon answer that first.
No, absolutely. I think we as Noon are also at the receiving end of these costs, right? But as I said, like if I take a global view of handling a cash transaction versus handling a card transaction, at a very aggregated global view, for me, a prepaid transaction is a lot more valuable than a cash transaction. So even today, even if a customer switches from a cash to a prepaid transaction, it's actually value generating for me. Of course, for the customer, it is easy. They don't have to wait at the home for somebody to pay cash. They don't have to worry about the change. So eventually, for me, as Noon, it's always beneficial to push people for more prepaid transactions. And I think that's the direction that we have seen with COVID coming up. So if the rates go down, yes, of course, we benefit from a cost perspective.
Just don't quote me on that, Mosam. Yeah?
We'll talk offline about that.
Yeah, so to quote Vineet, when those prices come down, yeah, I mean, of course, we're in FMCG. We will benefit, of course. Let's all be very open here, but we will always pass those benefits to the customer.
Absolutely.
No, and I think, sorry, Yahyah, but that's the real idea, right? The reason is not just that it just remains at the merchant level, right? It is to overall reduce the transaction cost.
We're in FMCG, one of the most competitive industries on the planet.
Yes.
Every fill, every penny, every cent counts. So for us, we will always look past those savings onto the customer.
Thanks, guys. Mitsu.
Yes, I have another question, which is also very interesting. Mr. Kuldeep Mehta is asking, do we have real-time refund for customers paying by card and not to take more than 7 days for refund in case of order cancellation and customer does not want to add in the card?
At least we've heard we have 2 days, right? Mosam, is that for you?
Yeah. I think there are a couple of ways to look at it. Like we as platform, as soon as we see a cancellation, the money instantly goes into a credit and it's usable for the order. So it's available instantly already. That technology exists. Now, when it comes to, coming back to a card where you paid it, or if you paid using cash for a item you already purchased, received, and you intend to return, obviously those processes are depending not only on one entity, which is us as a merchant, but it goes through multiple hops of banks and the schemes. And there is a global way of how it's managed, and it's just the way that technology is today. There are a lot of innovation happening on the instant refund side, and we are actually working closely with the technology service providers and schemes to get those implemented so that the money is instantly reflected, does not take the standard customer service language of it will take 5 to 7 working days. No, but as a customer, you always have a choice. If the money is available to you and you want to shop again, the money is available instantly. It does not take even a second more beyond the time it should take. I think with new payment methods coming like wallets, etc., it will only get accelerated because you don't have to go multiple hops. It's instantly within just one system. So those
but one of the more profitable. This is you, Vineet, and maybe it's a nasty question. But one of the more profitable areas of banks is all the money that are in escrow, right? That are waiting from being credited one place to another place. And do you think that's something that the banks are willing to to loosen up on? Because this is the question here. It's a good question, right? Because
Yeah.
some of the reasons is simply just because they want to have those money and spend for investments for a couple of days, right?
Trust me, Frederik, I wish it was like that. But you know, the fact is the settlement cycle, effectively what you're referring, you know, the settlement cycles have been coming down, yeah, from, you know, pretty much every year, actually. So you know, as a bank, I don't sit on that money for days or weeks, or I have obligations to settle and credit the merchant. So that's, you know, it's not, it's, if the question is, banks are making money out of it, actually not a lot. I won't say, of course, it also depends on the size and scale, right? Of the kind of merchant setup you have. But really that is not, you know, that is not really the source of revenue that banks are looking at when we talk about digital transactions or enabling merchants for digital.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Mitsu, you have other questions, or Yahyah, you have something to add here?
No, I just want to say, I mean, 10 seconds, it's the quicker we can get the money back to customers, the better it's for the customer. Simple as that. I always think consumer.
Yeah. Cool, thanks. Mitsu, do you have anything else?
Yes, we do have, but I'll just take the last question, and that is, do you think adding more security layers would have a negative impact on CX?
I think that's for you, Yahyah.
Yeah, no, I mean, on this whole online discussion, there's one part that everyone's forgot. It's the customer relationship management. It's the whole CRX process. No, absolutely not. We've put in security after security after security. For us, it's a big thing because we have some consumer data and we have your payment data. So no, absolutely not. I think as a consumer, oh my God, I want you to have security. Period. I want Noon to have more security, and I want them to have accurate data in their database about me. I want them to have my right name, my right date of birth, and my right address. So for me personally, more security. As a consumer now, forget Fine for a second, but as a consumer, I want Fine to have the best security, but I also want the best security and data for my personal and my family and my friends. That's
you know, just to add to what Yahyah said, you know, actually speaking, Mitsu, it does not have to be an either or, and it cannot be an either or.
Absolutely.
Right? We have to work on both, and there's work happening on both sides, right? So as consumers, we definitely want a hassle-free, simple, convenient user experience, customer experience, no questions. But when it comes to money, right, you know, or my personal data, you know, security is probably paramount, right? I'd rather wait 5 seconds or 7 seconds more, as long as I know that it's secure, right? But there's a fine balance, you know. So I can't really go and ask 20 different types of questions for a transaction that's 50 dirhams, for example, right? So what I want to say is, by all means, security is paramount when it comes to, you know, contactless, faceless transactions, you know, because of the whole cybersecurity risk that we all face. Because ultimately we are responsible, you know, for those transactions and for the customer's money. But at the same time, and it can be done with a very user-friendly journey, which is, you know, which is all for us to see. So no, I don't think it's an either or at all.
I think Mitsu, also with respect for time, I think, and I may be oversimplifying things here, but I'm hearing, and you added the fourth, Vineet, right? I'm hearing four things that will enable us to secure this area going forward, right? People, they have to have the trust in the system. So that is added security. We have to receive some kind of rewards for using it at the moment, at least, and it has to be absolutely hassle-free. And one of the methods of augmenting this is, as you said, Vineet, communication and dialogue and education of people. I think if that is going to be my, I would say, key takeaways from how do we accelerate the use of contactless payments going forward. Mitsu, do we have any last questions, or are we out of time?
Well summed up.
No, we have some questions, but I will put them in the chat box, and
Okay.
I hope that some of you can respond to those questions. We are running out of time, and I just have to thank everyone and thank you, all the panelists. It has been a fantastic session, and I personally learned a lot. And
thank you so much.
Thank you, Mitsu.
Thank you. To everyone who has attended the summit, please do visit the Networking Lounge to interact with the industry on some very relevant topics. The Networking Lounge is open right now and make some business connections. I would like to thank Visa, our exclusive payments partner, Teller, our associate partner, for showing massive trust in our abilities. And as previously mentioned, the theme of 2020 DigiPay Summit is the future of digital payments. And I hope the UAE edition of DigiPay Summit has delivered on setting the right narrative for the digital payments industry going forward. We hope you've made some good connections, learned something new, interacted with colleagues and industry peers through this virtual event. I will end the UAE edition with the thought: studies show that if the global digital payments market continues to grow at the same rate, it's expected to reach a massive $6 trillion by 2023. That a robust, secure and business payment infrastructure is not only the need for the hour, but quite possibly would be the majority contributor to the success of companies' digital plans. So here's hoping for many more editions of DigiPay Summit by Kalish Times. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, all the panelists and all the delegates. See you in the networking lounge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.